The O'Reilly Factor's on tonight.
We know that if we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence.
Once again, President Obama depending on the international community to fight terrorists who are killing Americans. Tonight, a very tough talking point on the folly of that strategy.
Every time there's a drone strike, that's the best recruiting tool for al-Qaeda.
The far left on the run. For years, they've opposed confronting the terror threat, and now there is confusion in the liberal ranks. We'll have a special report.
Good on you, Mr. O'Reilly, for coming back, unless, of course, you're furious about something else.
Also ahead, once again, Jon Stewart distorting my analysis, this time on the racial situation in Ferguson, Missouri. Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. What President Obama should do with ISIS and Putin, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The ISIS terror Nazis have murdered a second American, journalist Steven Sotloff. As with James Folly 2 weeks ago, they posted the beheading on the net for the entire world to see, proving once again that Muslim terrorists are as barbaric as the Third Reich ever was. By killing 2 Americans, ISIS has declared war on the USA. So President Obama and Congress should declare war on them and other Muslim terror groups. America has declared war 11 times in its history, the last being World War II. Congress must pass the war resolution. The president must then sign it. So let's get going, people. If President Obama does not formally declare war on Muslim terrorism, he's doing all Americans a great disservice. We need to send a powerful message to the world and stop the nonsense. You simply cannot have a group of people murdering Americans for political reasons. That is an act of war, period. One caveat. Once war is declared, you fight it smart. No need to occupy countries as we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. You hit the terrorists in all kinds of ways. The declaration just means the world knows we mean business. Talking Points hopes President Obama will stop his confused posture, his stammering, stuttering. His statement last week that he still does not have a strategy to combat ISIS speaks for itself. An ISIS strategy should have been in place months ago. There's no question that Mr. Obama does not want to wage war. He wants to punt, to deflect the attack on Americans onto the international community.
We know that if we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence, its effectiveness, its financing, its military capabilities, to the point where it is a manageable problem. And the question is going to be making sure we've got the right strategy, but also making sure that we've got the international will to do it.
That statement's irresponsible. The president was elected to protect America and Americans. The international community has nothing to do with that. Now, if Mr. Obama can rally the civilized world to help us, great. But you don't refuse to take protective action because places like Italy and India won't join in. It is long past time for all Americans to demand that their president protect them. It's that simple. Teddy Roosevelt's basic philosophy was speak softly and carry a big stick. With the Obama administration, we basically have speak incessantly and carry nothing.
As a nation, we're united. And when people harm Americans, we don't retreat. We don't forget. We take care of those who are grieving. And when that's finished, they should know we will follow them to the gates of hell until they are brought to justice. Because hell is where they will reside. Hell is where they will reside.
Well, I'm sure that has ISIS quaking. Despite the dangerous chaos overseas, some on the left continue to give the president cover. New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman, usually a level-headed guy, wrote today that ISIS is not a threat to the American homeland. Amazing. What is Mr. Friedman talking about? These people have sworn to kill Americans anywhere in the world. Is that not a threat? Friedman also says that President Obama should not overreact, and that's the liberal line, that President Bush overreacted in Iraq and hurt the nation. The other liberal line is we can't antagonize the terrorists.
Every time there's a drone strike, that's the best recruiting tool for al-Qaeda. This guarantees the cycle of violence will go on.
Every time we kill the #1 person, there's another #1 person. You're creating more terrorists.
Every time you kill an innocent family, then almost all of the young men, at least in that family, is going to be aroused to with an absolute and total hatred of America and a desire for vengeance.
Now, all Americans should absolutely understand two things. Number one, Muslim terrorism preaches that murdering Americans is good. And number two, that President Obama has been far too passive in the face of grave threats to the nation. And that brings us to the Russian villain, Putin. His troops have now invaded Ukraine. This after Russia seized the Crimea. Once again, President Obama is calling for international consensus to deal with Putin. Once again, the president is not leading the effort to stop the Russian tyrant. He's waiting, taking meetings, considering. It's worth noting that 75 years ago this week, Adolf Hitler invaded Poland, starting World War II. Putin is using the Hitler playbook, moving his forces into weaker countries to seize territory. Hitler knew Europe was weak. He knew he could do pretty much whatever he wanted to do. Putin realizes the same thing. Europe's weak. And President Obama has no stomach for confrontation. Talking Points understands you can't confront Russia militarily over Ukraine, but you can certainly arm the Ukrainians, and Mr. Obama refuses to do that. Also, the USA should begin moving missiles into NATO countries as a warning. And finally, as Talking Points said months ago, the American banking system should refuse to accept any credit card receipts from Russia. That would break the Russian economy. When you think about it, President Obama seems to be intimidated by Putin. Mr. Obama also seems to be confused about how international terrorism can destabilize the entire world. It's obvious the president has not thought these things through, has no strategy to confront them, and is putting America in danger. Or am I wrong? And that's a memo. Next on the Rundown, reaction from Monica Crowley and Juan Williams. Later, we'll hear from Karl Rove, Rosen and Cameron, Dennis Miller on the overseas threat. Factors coming right back.